in this part of the revision we are going to start, we are looking at inside the device. There are three main internal components inside the device. First is the control logic, then you have the transducer, then you have the buffer. Okay, so these are the three important things which are inside, three internal components. Control logic is associated with the device, control the device operation in response to the direction from the I/O module. That means there is control logic, which is the brain of the external device. So inside the device, inside the external device, if you consider, there is control logic, and this control logic is a brain of the external device, a small circuit that interprets the control signals arriving from the I/O module. I told that I/O module would give some control signals, and those control signals are interpreted by this control logic which is present in the external device, and they drives the device mechanical or electronic operation according. Now devices, whether it be mechanical or electronic operation, according to this control signals, it will make the device to work. Okay, and for a disk drive, it moves, like if I'm considering an example for disk drive, according to this control logic, there would be some control signals which moves the read or write head accordingly, right? So that is what it means by control logic. So first component which is present inside the external device is the control logic. This is considered to be the brain of the device, which basically controls. It's a small circuit that interprets the control signals arriving from the I/O module. So what does the control logic do? It is a small circuit that is basically interpreting the control signals arriving from the, it would interpret the control signals which is arriving from where? Which is arriving from the right. So this interpret the control signals arriving from the 1 minute guys. So here what happens, that what does the control logic do? The control logic would actually is the brain of the external device. Control logic is the brain of the external device, and it is a small circuit that is placed where it is placed. It is a small circuit where it is placed. It is a So it is a small circuit which is placed in our external device. Okay, so it is a small circuit that is present in our external device, and that would actually interpret the signals, that is the control signals which is received from the I/O module. Okay, and according to that, it will drive the device's electronic or mechanical operations accordingly. Okay, that is what it does. The next device is the transducer. Now what does the transducer do? The transducer converts the data from electrical to other forms of energy during the output, and from other forms to electrical during input. Understood? So here what happens is that, first let's understand what does transducer do. So transducer actually, what does the transducer do is that it actually converts the data from the electrical, it converts the data to the other forms of energy during the output. So during the output part, what it has to do, the data has to be converted from electrical to the other forms, and from the other forms it has to be converted to electrical during input part. So this transformation of this energy is done by who? The transducer. So transducer is the one which converts the data from the electrical to the other forms during the output part, and in the input part, the other forms to the electrical form, it is converted by this transducer itself. So it's a component that crosses the boundary between the electrical world of computing and the physical world. So it is the one which is actually the breaking that boundary between the electrical world and the real world, right? So in input what happens, we are receiving the input from the devices. So the devices input can be in any form, some other forms it would be. So that form you have to convert it into the electrical form for input purpose. For output purpose is what the result anode will be in the electrical form. So that has to be converted into the physical energy form, right, into the form that would be understood by the devices. So that physical energy I have to convert. So physical energy to electrical energy, and electrical energy to electrical signal, we can say electrical signal to physical energy is what you have to understand here. Some example, if you take this drive, there is magnetic field. That magnetic field I have to convert to electrical signals. Now speaker, if I'm saying that speaker, from the speaker the output is coming in electrical signal, but how we hear it through the sound wave. So that electrical signal to sound wave conversion has to be happened there. Microphone, we are speaking through the microphone, so that we are speaking sound waves through the microphone. That sound waves you have to, the computer, if it has to process, it has to convert into electrical signal, right? In a printer, if you see, the electrical signal will be there in the printer, that has to be converted into the ink or in the paper form, right? That is temperature sensor, the heat energy has to be converted into the electrical energy, then only electrical voltage, right? The heat energy is converted into the electrical voltage, and that can be done by whom? The heat energy into the electrical voltage, that is done by this temperature sensor. So that is also because of the device which is present in the sensor, that is the transducer. Understood? That is about transducer. So we understood about transducer. Now we are talking about buffer. It is actually, buffer is what is associated with the transducer to temporarily hold data being transferred between the IO module and the external device. A buffer size of 8 to 16 bits is basically common. So you have to understand that buffer is actually a device which is associated with this transducer itself, and it basically holds temporarily, it is basically used to temporarily hold the data. Okay, it is used to temporarily hold the data between the IO module and the external device. So it is basically used to temporarily hold the data that you are transferring between the IO module and the external device. And a buffer size of 8 to 16 bit is there, and the buffer size can be up to 8 or 16. So temporarily, so this is basically that if I'm considering device and if I'm considering the IO module, both are operating at different speed. So sometimes so what happen is that transducer may produce or consume data at different rate, so then the IO module can handle it. So it smoothens out this timing mismatch. So in order to be, the device and the IO module both are operating at the different speed, so we have to manage this timing between them. So that is why there would be a buffer which is present in the device, which would temporarily store the data, okay, which is transferring between this IO module and the external environment. So this is basically used to smooth out the mismatches in the speed. That is what you have to understand. So there are three different internal components we talk about. That is the first component that we talk about is the control logic. That is the brain of the computer that would actually control all of this main things, that the IO module will give you some control signals. So the control logic would interpret this control signals from the IO, and it will, as you can see, it interprets this control signals which is coming from the IO module, and it would make the device to do its mechanical electronical operations according to that control signals. And the second device is the transducer, which converts, if you have electrical signals, it converts to the physical energy. If you have physical energy, it can convert to the electrical signals. So that conversion of the data's other forms to the electronic signals, or electronic signals to the other forms, is done by the transducer. Then we talk about buffer. Buffer is a temporary storage which is associated with what? Associated with the transducer, and that temporarily stores the data. Okay, it can be up to we can say the data size, buffer size would be up to 8 or 16 bits only. And the transducer, we can say that here, why we are using this buffer, because there would be speed difference between the device and the IO module. To smoothen out the speed difference between the device and the IO module, which is operating at different speed, we are using the buffer. Here if you see the generic model of IO module,